Alright, it's going to be kind of an odd start, but I do spend a little bit of time in my Bible at lunch too, so I'm going to be reading today from just one passage, generosity encouraged, from Corinthians 9:6. Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will reap generously. Anyway, that was a good starting point. Bring God into it. I'll try and get this up here with my... Alright, that looks about right. Cool. So, working on the deathguard again today. This is where I'm at. I got the gold finished last night. I'm now starting to work on the next color, which is all the fleshy bits, using Bugman's Glow. And yeah, just gonna put a little on my palette here and get to it. Now, usually when I paint, like I said, at lunchtime, I eat and then I spend a little bit of time putting some paint down. I think I got most of the ones that I needed, at least that one and this one have been done, I think. Yeah. And now I'm working on to the apothecary type model. I don't know what this guy's called, but he's cool. And I'm kind of doing all the places where the plague will be, because once the fleshy bits get down, I like to wash it with a little bit of purple as well. Kind of gives it that infected look when you have a dark flesh washed with purple. Also allows me to play around with some of the inks, or what do you call it, washing of inks, using some high concentration rubbing alcohol and wiping some of the ink off of the base coat color, or wash off the base coat color. It works really nice. It's just a technique that I like to use. I'll show it to you guys when I get there. The fleshy bits, he's got some little maggots crawling around here on his chest. I'm just trying to get all the little bits, because these are all the prep stages before the big oil wash for the model. And once we get to the big oil wash for the model, it changes drastically, this really bright tone, down to a more manageable, or more, I should say, grimdark looking color. When I get there, I'll go over it, but I'm basically going to airbrush it on over the top of all this wonderful paintwork that I've been doing, and then I just take a Q-tip and wipe it all away. Not all of it, but using mineral spirits, wipe away a big chunk of it, and it comes out with the desired effect. I think that's going to be the majority of the fleshy bits for this one. Oh, just got one more holding the bell down here. And that's the thing, walk around the model a couple times, make sure you've checked everything and looked at stuff. We're trying something different this time. I'm having to record the video because Instagram does not allow me to post long recordings, so to speak, in a sitting. I can only hold the button down for like a minute, I think is all they give me. But just going through and doing color at a time. That's the, yeah, awesome, dropping stuff. That's the best way to get it done, if you focus on putting in a little bit of work and spend a little bit of time, and it'll end up coming out right at the end. You can accomplish a lot in a short period of time just by doing it in this line fashion, where you're putting model after model after model of the same color. I always try and leave a little bit of the other colors available to me, the ones I did use. I don't just take one color with me when I come to paint, because inevitably when you go back over a model, you'll discover that, hey look, there's something I missed. Or that color I missed, something small like a bell or a spike or whatever. And before you basically seal in the model with the next step, you want to still block in all your color over this airbrushed base. Now, I didn't talk about that much before, but I airbrushed the base. I'm trying to remember what color that was. I have to hear it. I airbrushed it goblin green to start, and then again with after that I put on actually this color here, which is rotting flesh, I believe. These are both Army Painter colors that I shot on, and then I dry brushed it with another lighter green color to kind of make the edges pop. So anyway, some of these require a lot of this fleshy color. So much so, I'm going to pull a little more out of the pot. I don't always keep my pots of paint in perfect order. Figure it's paint, we're going to go through it anyway. Sometimes I can put it into a dropper bottle or whatever and try and save as much as I can, or if I plan on airbrushing it, then I will definitely do that. But for the most part, especially if you're just picking out base coat colors, you're going to go through it anyway. And it's better to have more fresh paint, I think. It's a little expensive, but you know, helps with the desired effect. I've heard of people keeping their paints a really long time. I have some that are years and years old, and some of them hold their consistency, but all of them separate. So as long as you're able to re-agitate them and keep them dry, that's the one thing I do not like about, or keep them wet, I mean. I do not like about the Games Workshop bottles or pots, is that they are constantly having to be had a little bit added to them to keep them going so they don't dry out. These little mini destroyer hive bits here. Now I'm using a Army Painter Regiment Regiment brush size. You can use whatever you want, but I like it for base coating. I have a couple of these back up. It's a decent sized brush, and you can still, it has a decent belly, and you can still get to what you want to paint and get your base coats down. I hear people talk about too thin coats, and sometimes you have to use too thin coats. Other times it'll go on in one, and I'm very impressed with that. I think part of that is this GW base coat paint. I'm really a fan of it. Anything with a base in its name has a lot of pigment in it, and it just goes on so cleanly. And there's a lot less hassle with it. Some of the Army Painter paints, when I paint them on with a brush, that you have to put layer after layer after layer. And these ones, I just don't have that problem. So, I mean, obviously whatever works for you works, but this is just what I like to use as far as base coats go. I've just discovered use what works. If it works for you, great. Some people really like Vallejo. I like Vallejo paints. They're just harder to get in my neck of the woods. These paints are all available in my local store, and I have a little bit of an impatient problem. I don't like to wait for my paints to show up. I like to, yeah, I'm running out of that color. Go down and pick up some more. Alright, that looks, there's a spot. These destroyer hives on the backs of these Death Shroud Terminators, I'm just kind of painting them the fleshy bit colors, just because it seemed to fit. kind of mixes in with the other Terminators that he has already. Take one last walk around the model, make sure I didn't miss any of those. I think I got them all. Anything else? Oh, there's one right up by his face. And remember, when you're painting, it's not about if you make a mistake, because you will. It's about what you do with the mistake once you make it. If you take the time to go back through, if I accidentally get some on the other color, I'll go back through and get it. I don't have to go all the way to the edge because the wash will cover the difference. But I do have to get enough color on it to where you look at it from the different angles and all those pieces stand out. I actually see one more spot that I think I want to put gold on this model. So that's what I was talking about with the going back over. Did I bring my gold? That'd be embarrassing. Oh, forgot my gold. So note to self, I want to gold that piece. I'll do that when I sit down tonight. So I spent about an hour last night going over and doing the different things, the gold and stuff, and finishing up, touching up stuff. It's not a terrible amount of time. I had time after dinner, and the kids were watching a movie. So that's where I spend a little bit of time. My studio's in my living room, basically, so I have the luxury of being able to do that. I used to have my own room for it, but then I wasn't participating enough with what was going on with the family. When we have discussions, or if something's needed, or anything like that, just good to have the ability to have that reach out and touch and talk to each other kind of deal. There's not a lot on this one as far as fleshy bits go. Oh well, although the Tallyman has this entire tally held up. That's the only thing. Got a tentacle coming down around this way. And this entire thing is tentacle. Yay. Go on a little thick, spread it around. Again, all those things I love about this paint. Let's get the desired effects. I mean, this is just the most time-consuming part of painting. I was speaking with my wife earlier today. She's not a big fan of my Warhammer hobby, because I let it cause some problems in our marriage previously. But I have learned to straighten my life away and prioritize a little better, I think. Not perfectly, as we are all sinners, but, pieces at a time. If I finish getting this color down on these guys, I'll be a happy camper. It's going to based on, put a little bit around his gum line, on my sockets. I wanted a multicolor around this guy. See if he's patching skin. I also want to get all this plague bursting from his belly here. So I don't know if you can see that, but doing a little bit there. Yeah, this is not bad. I just enjoy it. It's relaxing. Sometimes I listen to music, sometimes an audiobook. But while I'm doing this series, I will be talking most of the time. I might overlay some music on the video, if it'll let me. I'll try. Maybe the next one. So you guys can listen to it jam out, or I can put it on. I might find some editing software to make it, accelerate the process so you don't have to wait for me to brush stroke away here. Looks like I missed a few of the metallic underlays there. Alright. It's coming out okay. Man Reaper scythes. I think that's what they're called. These models are just a lot of fun to paint. If you like painting, they have a lot of detail, which is good and bad. I mean, you're going to get, it's going to take longer. You're going to get less models completed, obviously, when you have this much detail to do, and I have a deadline, so whenever you have a deadline, you got to kind of shoot for it and know how much you have to do, and also not overcomplicate your color palette. That's the beautiful thing about the Battle Ready Brushworks ordeal, is it does not complicate the color palette. Keeping it simple allows you to speed through it. You get armies done in a short period of time. He's got a whole bunch of maggots pouring out of his feet there. Just flopping out of his body. That's cool. That's the other thing I really like. It's like as you start painting, you know, you dry brush, you don't see everything, but you start painting, you start to see all the little things the artist came up with when they were designing this model. And some of it's really cool. It's my experiment on where the camera's sitting, so hopefully you guys can see all this and I'm not wasting an entire lunch break of painting. Keeping it on video somewhat. Not so worried about getting stuff on this smoke here. That's going to be a completely different color. I usually do the smoke after I've done my big washes, because I try and make it look all colorful and fancy, like it's magic. Because it kind of is. I mean, you know, not magic, but the way these models are supposed to be, infected with a contagion. And even the gas clouds they emit are supposed to be a plague. So I wanted it to look like something that wasn't just regular smoke, but more or less something that could be construed as toxic. That's why I chose those colors. When I get there, I'll go over the colors, but all that's a process. Just takes time. You know, some people like to paint before they assemble models. There are some models I prefer to do that way. You know, obviously bikes and that kind of stuff. I really dislike having to paint those after they're on their bike. Just makes it so I can't get to all the nice little spots I need to get to get a certain color or effect in a certain spot. That looks pretty good. Alright, we'll get one more done. I don't know if he has got any flesh. He's got some fleshy stuff. Do him. I've been having fun with this guy too. I only got about 5 minutes left on my lunch break. I gotta get back to it. Back to fixing cars. Having that kind of fun. I also brace my hand on my model, or on the model usually by touching a spot. It steadies my hand for the brush. A lot of people try and paint like this and they shake. If you put your pinky on and brush, just gives you way more control over your brush. Especially when you start getting close to spots you don't want to get this paint on, because it's been airbrushed and you don't want to mess up that transition. I'm absolutely no expert at this, but I enjoy it, and it's helping out a little bit. My wife has been out of a job since midsummer because of COVID and an injury, which is kind of crappy. She hurt her shoulder, neck, a whole bunch of stuff at work, trying to catch a client that fell, or that was about to fall. She's like, if you know her, she's like 100 and nothing pounds. All of 5 foot nothing, 100 and nothing pounds, and tried to catch some rather large lady from falling to the ground, which is, I mean, commendable, but in the process hurt herself. And of course, when you get hurt at work, workman's comp is a thing. Yeah, it's another ridiculous process. Hope nobody ever has to deal with that. Workman's comp is just garbage. You know, these little pustules. On the back. Oh, and all of that. Yeah, buddy. I forgot how much flesh was on these guys. Maybe I shouldn't have chosen this model to finish 5 minutes. Well, I'll do part of it. I'll come back to it. So all this is flesh. We'll be doing the shading steps later. And again, like I said, we'll work a little purple into it. This section, I think these pipes, and I'm going to call it a day, because I have to get back. But this has been good. Thank you all for tuning in and hanging out with me. I'll figure out how to stream better. Maybe stream through Facebook or something. As of today, I'm just recording. Oh, it's an experiment, so we're trying that next. And always remember, if you make a mistake, you're at that stage where you can go back through and clean it up. The more time you spend keeping your stuff clean, the better your final results will be. The trick is to do your painting in stages, and the stages where each step cleans up the previous step too, or at least the next couple of steps will clean up the previous step. So if you do make mistakes, it's not the end of the world. Like I did on the smoke here, so it doesn't really matter if you get something on the smoke or not on that Death Shroud Terminator. Alright, so about halfway. I got a little bit left on the brush here. We get up in here. Just kind of give it that effect. Just got any other pustules on the armor. Yeah, that looks pretty good. The mouth is pretty fleshy. That one looks like it'll greatly benefit from a wash up in there. Just spreading it around. And I know, jabbing your brush into a pocket like that's not necessarily the best thing for the bristles. But do it, get the paint off, get it done. Try and be gentle as the paint bent, or as the bristles start to flex. There we go. Alright. This has been Johnny B with another Where Do We Find Time to Paint series at lunch. And got another chunk of them done. I'm about 25 minutes. Still pretty good. I probably won't get to, I'll probably finish this guy maybe before I head home tonight. If there's enough light outside, we're supposed to get snow. And this one, maybe when I get home. But Morty usually requires an excessive amount of patience and time to do all the bits of him. So I've been doing that one at my studio desk, just to get that handled. Still on par for getting stuff done. Thanks all for tuning in. Talk to you next time.